Hi, and welcome to the CS Innovations Highlight Podcast. This is our monthly podcast where we go through the release notes for Zscaler products, looking for features that are particularly interesting from a security or ease of use perspective. With me this month, I have Carlos. Hey, Carlos.
Hey Alex, good afternoon.
Thanks for being here. And then Maroon.
Yes, hello. Hi, Alex. Hi, Carlos.
Hey, Maroon, and thank you for being here. As usual, my guests have picked a number of features they want to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maroon. I think you have the first few features talking about ZIA.
Yes, indeed. So for ZIA, we will start first with the sandbox, advanced sandbox feature. So typically what we have done for all the new tenants or an existing tenants that just enabled advanced cloud sandbox feature, we'll be getting new default rules that will be added. One is for docs that are trusted, one for docs that are archives, and one for executives downloaded from web. So if you are an existing Advanced Cloud Sandbox customer, you already have rules. These predefined rules, let's say, will not be added. However, if you're interested in reviewing them and adding them, you can go to our ZIA About Sandbox page on our help portal, and you'll get more details about those rules, and therefore you could create them manually if you want. These rules are really intended to help our customers on board with the sandbox feature. So yeah, to help them getting started. You can find all the information on the help pages.
So, Maroon, can you maybe in sort of a sentence each explain what the rules do?
So, yes, of course. The first rule is about sandbox, applying sandbox rule to trusted destinations. The idea here is actually to intentionally do not subject those documents coming from trusted sites to the same level of inspection from a sandbox perspective as the untrusted sites. So you can do some sort of whitelisting if you want for destinations that you trust. The second point is related to archives documents in order to have specific policies applied to those archive documents. And the last one is all about executables and to have sandbox apply to those executable files during, whenever a user is attempting to download those. The rules anyway will always be added in default mode. So if if an organization does not like them, they can keep them in disabled. As idea, of course, is to enable them whenever it makes sense to fit your needs.
Yeah, that makes sense because obviously the existing default sandbox rule only scans a few file types from a few types of destinations. So these are really rules to get you started off with Advanced Sandbox to make sure that the very basic configuration that's there by default gives you some level of protection. So obviously you probably want to put in more rules, more fine-grained rules with a better control over what gets quarantined and not. But at least if you are just starting out with Advanced Sandbox, you have these brand new rules to point you in the right direction.
Exactly it, yes.
And then I believe you have a second today feature, which is to do with bandwidth control.
Exactly. So, bandwidth control allows you to basically manage bandwidths for critical applications. For example, to make sure that bandwidth is available for your critical applications and therefore some other non-critical traffic can be delayed while we prioritize some important traffic. And now we have a new feature that will give you visibility basically on the amount of milliseconds that, from a latency perspective, that we are adding to those transactions that are being delayed due to bandwidth control. So we have a new Web Insight logs columns, basically that can be used to track those additional latency, and you have the same fields available within your NSS if you want to track those through NSS and receive them in your SIM, for example, to build some report. But yeah, so now we do provide you visibility about the amount of latency that is caused by bandwidth control. This is the main message.
Perfect. And I think you are on to one ZPA feature, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly. So for ZPA, this is an important feature, basically, that we believe will simplify how we deploy app connectors. Of course, in the future, the same new enrollment support will be added for additional components such as private service edges, network connectors, private cloud connectors, etc. So now we do support OAuth 2.0 enrollment for app connectors. If you remember in the past, it used to be by provisioning key only. So now you have the choice. You can, of course, continue to use provisioning key, or you can switch over to OAuth. Of course, with provisioning key, the main difficulty was you need to manually copy the key from one disk to another, etc. Then you had to implement limits, etc., etc. So now with OAuth, there's no such thing. So there's no need to copy keys. There are no limits. It's a more secure method of enrollment. There's no SSH that is required to log in into the app connector to do this enrollment. So it makes things much easier. Of course, we do recommend to make sure that you are allowing, from a network perspective, you're allowing a couple of destinations that are needed for OAuth. You can find all of that under the config page, so config.zscaler.com. Under the private section, you can find all the domains, FQDNs that are needed for OAuth authentication. And one last thing to add is that now that OAuth is supported basically for all the app connectors, there is an additional field that is now mandatory whenever you deploy an app connector, which is a signing certificate. So the signing certificate field is now mandatory. So this can be of importance for you if you are deploying, for example, a new app connectors within from the API interface. So don't forget now to also provide information about the signing certificate for each app connector. Otherwise, you will not be able to deploy those app connectors. This is now a mandatory field that was not there before.
And so to confirm, one, this has no impact on existing app connectors, right?
Exactly. So app connectors which have already been deployed and provisioned, etc., absolutely no impact. This is only for deploying and provisioning for new app connectors that need to be added.
And my second question is the legacy provisioning method with the tokens still supported, or is that gone away?
No, it can still be used. So if you would prefer to use provisioning keys, it's still possible.
Thank you for that, Maroon. And then I think the next features are ZDX, or the next feature is ZDX. And Carlos, I believe that is your field.
Yes, thank you, Alex. So today I wanted to talk about real user monitoring. That is our newest addition to our CDX platform. As you already know, the way it works is that the Zscaler client connector collects different metrics by sending synthetic probes, which are then aggregated into our dashboard, and then we show how well or bad an application is performing. So real user monitoring, instead of sending synthetic probes, it will capture metrics from actual user browser sessions on Windows and macOS. And on top of collecting page fetch time metrics and errors, it also captures core web vitals, which is a key factor to measure the user experience. Real user monitoring gives you now the required granularity to understand if the slowness is caused by front-end JavaScript errors, single-page applications route transitions, or third-party resources affecting critical workflows. For example, there are many industries that can benefit from this feature, starting with healthcare, where slow rendering applications can create a big impact in assisting patients, or financial services, where traders experiencing slowness in their applications may be in trouble if they don't react quickly to the market.
And so can you can you maybe say a few things about how this works? Is this a new agent to install? Is this a capability to enable in ZCC?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Alex. So the requirements are two. So now whenever you need to configure a probe, you will need to enable real user monitoring for that probe. And the second requirement is that you need to install an extension within the browser. Currently, Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome are supported. So basically, we're supporting Chromium-based browsers, and those would be the two requirements to enable it.
Okay, fantastic. And then I think that's it for the ZDX features. And so we are on to data protection, where there's quite a few things to talk about. So go ahead.
So let's start with Microsoft Copilot. So if you're rolling out Microsoft Copilot in your environment, your biggest risk isn't probably the model. It's going to be overshared data that Copilot can surface and expose by accident. With Zscaler's new Microsoft Copilot Readiness Assessment, we will fix that with a focused dashboard built in to find and remediate exposure before day one. The way it works is that the assessment scans your Microsoft 365 tenants, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, and it will identify sensitive assets and how widely they are exposed. For example, organization-wide links, external links, or large internal audiences. And you will also see top risky assets and owners, so you know exactly where to start. Within the same dashboard, you can fix issues at scale. For example, apply MIP labels, quarantine files, remove external or internal collaborators and shareable links, or simply remove sharing directly from the report. To leverage this new dashboard, you only need to onboard the Microsoft OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams tenant, and then enable DLP policies with active scanning and import your MIP labels to get going.
Okay, so good for organizations that are looking into enabling Copilot. And then you have another data protection feature. So SaaS security, I believe, is what this is about.
Yes, Alex. So first, the SaaS security insight logs now include richer filters and columns across collaboration, email, and file sharing applications like MIP labels or the accessibility flag. This accessibility flag will help you to know if, for example, Microsoft Pilot can access that particular file, so you can pinpoint risky content fast and at scale. And second, the SaaS security assets report, specifically the assets with incidents view, adds those same fields and lets you drill down from assets to owners, senders, and collaborators, and then take action right there. So you can view scan history, quarantine, remove public links, or collaborators, or apply even a MIP label to supported files. And now I'd like to continue talking about Microsoft Teams. If you're planning to roll out Microsoft Teams in your environment, here's a very big update. Zscaler can now quarantine sensitive content directly in Microsoft Teams and show users a customized tombstone message that explains what happened and who to contact. This ties neatly to the enhanced SaaS security assets report that we just covered. In the assets with incidents view, admins can review and remove the Teams quarantine content in one single flow.
Okay, and then the next feature, still staying in data protection, I believe, is to do with endpoint data scan. So, Carlos, maybe before you start talking about the new feature, do you want to explain a little bit about what endpoint data scan is and how it works?
Yeah, of course. So, endpoint data scan is a separate dashboard where you have visibility into what's happening into your endpoints. So you will have visibility into the sensitive files that your end users have access to in their own laptops. And also you can actually see the actions from those users. For example, if they're trying to print a sensitive file or they're connecting a pen drive and trying to exfiltrate some sensitive files as well, you have full visibility into those actions, so you can take control and help the users with their security. So now what we have released is the application investigation section. This is a single view to find risky software across your endpoints, including unauthorized AI tools and unapproved browsers. It will automatically flag vulnerable or suspicious applications so the security teams can prioritize what matters most. To have access to this feature, you only need to be subscribed to the Endpoint DLP license and access it from the Endpoint Data Scan dashboard. This is a great tool for compliance, audit, and quickly rooting out shadow IT. Continuing with Endpoint Data Scan, we have now the End User Report feature, which empowers users to locate sensitive files stored on their local devices and identify instances of non-compliant data storage. This is crucial for promoting a culture of secure data storage. The available options for sensitive data selection include dictionaries, DLP engines, and AI ML categories. And the way it works and how we support this is that the end users will receive daily reports and specific actionable guidance on any sensitive files that we have discovered. And the administrators, of course, have the ability to customize the guidance message, offering best practices for storing sensitive files on endpoints. And the key is that by providing this information and enabling administrators to tailor the messaging, the feature will empower end users to actively secure or remove sensitive information, making them participants in protecting organizational data.
So we call it a report, but just to confirm, right, this is not a dashboard report for admins. This is really just a user-side communication that goes out regularly telling them what's on their machine. That's correct?
Yeah, exactly. The goal is to coach and train the users and make them aware of what type of sensitive files they have in their own devices.
Perfect. I think that's going to be a lot better than just sending them a big angry message saying, no, you can't do that when they try and do something stupid with a sensitive file. And then I think you have one more feature-ish. It's a few different things. But you wanted to talk about Endpoint DLP coming to macOS. Is that correct?
Yes, so we can now enforce data loss prevention block actions specifically for printing activities originating from macOS devices. And this new feature extends the existing DLP policy framework to cover a critical vector of data exfiltration on Apple's desktop operating system. And then I had another feature that I wanted to discuss to round out Endpoint DLP features. And it's the capability to monitor and block sensitive information when specific applications access files, as well as when content is pasted into those applications. This is supported for both Windows and macOS platforms. And one example would be, for example, a user who is trying to upload sensitive content through a specific application like Slack, or trying to copy-paste sensitive data into that application. We would be able to control that and create a block policy for that particular action.
All right. that's it for this episode. So Maroon, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Carlos.
And
Thank you,
Carlos, thanks
Maroon.
for being here.
Thank you so much, guys.
And see you in the next episode. Bye.
See you. Bye.
See you.